So in today's session, we're going to take a deep dive into the four main different subtypes of intermittent fasting. So fasting is really popular. If you've been watching our channel for any length of time, you know that we've done long format interviews with Dr. Jason Fung, Peter Attia, and many other paragons in the fasting community. But today, we're going to keep this a little bit more simple and just lay down the nuts and bolts of this, because I realized that a lot of people got out of their intermittent fasting routine with the stay-home order, with school closures, and all the COVID stuff. So today, let's kind of revisit all these things. And then on the back side of this board, we have a little bit more of an advanced discussion that we'll talk about later in this video with regards to why I'm a little bit more biased and when it comes to time-restricted feeding as a subtype of intermittent fasting, because of the fact that the circadian clock system with regards to all the different hormones, with regards to digestive physiology, blood sugar sensitivity, insulin sensitivity, is a little bit different in terms of just when you eat, as opposed to just fasting for a certain number of hours in a day. So that's my biases. That's, where I'm coming from. And then we're going to talk more about the 5-2 diet, which I think is great for people that aren't very athletic. And we can even get into more advanced alternate day fasting. So welcome back. It's Mike Meltzer here. I'm grateful that you are here. So one tool that we're going to talk about a little bit later in this video is called berberine hydrochloride. So this is something that I would like you to consider if you're new to fasting. This is sort of a fasting mimetic. It's an accelerant of sort that can sort of enhance your fast by helping your body to increase levels of ketone production early on in your fast. So one of the formulas that I like to recommend to new clients is Myoscience's berberine hydrochloride with alpha-lipoic acid, or ALA. Alpha-lipoic acid and biotin are synergistic nutrients that help with blood sugar health. So that might be something to consider if you're struggling with intermittent fasting, if you want to get onto a new 5-2 fasting routine or alternate day fasting routine. You can try giving berberine a try. What I'll do is I'll link below one of the formulas that I actually put together and have tested for a number of years. I started using this back in 2016. It's a great blend that really works well and has a really clean form of berberine hydrochloride. So give that a try and use the coupon code podcast below. So let's sort of get into it. So essentially what fasting is doing, if we talk about quickly the physiology. So if you start to restrict food or just completely avoid food for more than 12 hours, a few different things happen, okay? Number one, your glucose tends to drop, and that causes a change in various hormones. That starts to reduce insulin, and that raises a hormone called glucagon. And that sort of triad of low glucose, low insulin, and high glucagon sort of creates this other fat-burning physiologic effect that we've talked about in other videos with hormone-sensitive lipase and these different things that actually lead to the enhancement of fat being released from your fat cells, and then your liver starts to make ketones. So this is just a natural way to also affect satiety, because when you're doing sort of these prolonged intermittent fasts, whether it's OMAD 16-8, 18-6, you can actually reduce satiety more so than if you're nibbling every 2 to 3 hours, which a lot of people do. That way does work. Bodybuilders do nibbling and low calorie eating all the time, snacking all the time, but what the studies actually show, and just anecdotal evidence shows, is people just get consumed by food. So intermittent fasting is a natural way to get you into a calorie deficit, to lower glucose, to lower insulin, and to start increasing your body's fat burning and fat oxidation machinery. Now, the challenge here is if you compare, there's all these different studies where they look at, in the materials and methods you don't really get from the abstract, it will say intermittent fasting compared to continuous energy restriction, CER. And it's hard to compare apples to apples when you look at these different studies, because in some intermittent fasting studies, they allow up to 400 calories per day. So then you really have like a severe calorie deficit versus a moderate calorie deficit. It's not really a true intermittent fast. So when we talk about these different intermittent fasting, during these windows that you're fasting, whether you're fasting for 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, or you're just eating one meal per day, what we suggest, and what a lot of people generally suggest, is coffee, tea, or any calorie-free sort of, and again, we want to sort of get away from the stevia and all that during that window. You basically just want to have liquids that don't have any energy. Now, if you have a little MCT in your coffee, if you have a little cream, it's not the end of the world, but having a massive 300 calorie keto coffee doesn't really, it's not truly fasting, okay? So just keep that in mind. So when it comes to intermittent fasting, essentially what you're doing is you're having a confined window that is constrained by a number of hours, okay? So whether you're fasting for 16 hours a day or 18 hours a day or 22 hours a day in the case of like an OMAD, that would be just garden variety intermittent fasting. Now, what's cool about this is it's super easy. You just set an app. I like the Zero app. There's various other apps that you can use. You say, okay, I eat now and then I fast for another 18 hours or 16 hours or whatever. The downside to this is intermittent fasting without the constructs of time, as we'll talk about now with time-restricted feeding. Time-restricted feeding is nice because it considers the fact that digestion and utilization and a post-meal processing of nutrients occurs during the wake phase or the active phase, if we're talking about circadian rhythm jargon, of mammalian or human physiology. So our digestive tract is really active as I record this video. It's about noon here on Wednesday. My digestion, my ghrelin, all the different circadian clock enzymes and machinery that are telling my gastrointestinal system to start preparing for food are most active. They start to wane later in the day, 6, 7, 8 p.m. Things are going down. Biorelease, hydrochloric acid release, motility. It's all at its nadir, okay? Because animals, at least if you're non-nocturnal primates and so forth, it's just the active phase during the day is when they should be eating. During the sleep phase or the non-active phase is when they should be resting, digesting, and going to bed, really. But here's the challenge. So what a lot of people do is they intermittent fast. They fast all day, 16-8 or 18-6, whatever, and they have the bulk of their calories between like 4 p.m. and say 9 p.m. Now, I don't really like that because you're getting a lot of energy, and then what are you doing? You're going to bed. Okay, so we know that atherosclerosis and disease processes happen in the post-meal window. And so if you're going to bed on a full stomach, you have a lot of glucose, a lot of fat and all that, maybe you're eating a keto diet, that's just a lot of demands and stress on digestive physiology that is sort of inconsistent or incongruent with the circadian clock physiology of your gastrointestinal tract. So just keep that in mind, because where time-restricted feeding comes in is, and you don't have to start eating at 8 a.m., but a lot of studies kind of create this window of 8 to 2 or 8 to 4. This is just how research scientists do this because people are usually in a laboratory type setting. You can open it up to 10 to 6 or 11 to 7 or 12 to 8 or whatever, something like that. But I don't generally recommend, and I was hesitant there to even say this because I don't want to change something for you if it's working. If you're eating your one meal a day at 9 p.m. and you're shredded, you're lean, your glucose is good, you have no health issues, great energy, you're losing fat, then please continue to do that. But most people are bookending their day with energy and they're not getting the results they want. But they're like, hey, I'm still intermittent fasting. Why am I not getting the results I want? Try eating a little bit earlier and cutting off your feeding window earlier. So what that means is that you're going to bed in an early mild stage of ketosis and definitely waking up in a state of ketosis. So this can be a little bit more helpful. Now, of course, you could accelerate this by taking some berberine or something like that in the evening to maybe sort of help there go for a walk. People asked about, exercise. What about exercising on this? Well, exercising early in the morning on a fast. So you fast for 12, 14, 16 hours and then you exercise. What are you doing? You're further depleting glycogen. You're further depleting glucose. You're accelerating, the fat burning physiology. So I'm a huge fan of that. Now, you might be stronger exercising in just a mild post-meal state. So if you're doing a time-restricted feeding protocol where you're eating, say, 10 a.m., and you work out in the afternoon, you have some energy there from your foods. You might have a better workout. You could finish your meal at 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever. And, you get the recovery, the amino acids and all that. Then you fast the next day till, say, 10 or noon. So again, I'm a fan of this, and we're gonna flip the board over very, very soon and talk about ghrelin, leptin, adiponectin, and all the different circadian clock hormones. But first, let's just sort of finish off on the 5-2 diet and the alternate day fasting. So I like these more for people, these forms of intermittent fasting, that is, for people that are a little bit more overweight, people that aren't as physically active. I think this is a great launching place because, when you have people that have already low body fat, when you have women that are in their reproductive years, women in their 20s and 30s that don't have much body fat, when you start doing more the 5-2 diet or the alternate day fasting, It's challenging because, in these individuals, they don't have much of reserve anyway. And then you're further stressing the system by doing 24 plus hour fasts. So not a huge fan of that. Now, of course, if that's working for you and you're doing it, maybe you've had cancer or you have a first degree relative that has had cancer, you're worried about diabetes or heart failure, or you have autoimmune conditions, and you might want to maybe consider something like this. Because as we talk about in one of the courses that we do, the OMAD and Intermittent Fasting with Fitness e-course, we talk a lot about some of the benefits and some of the early studies and explore some of these with regards to the protein pulse study and intermittent fasting study. One of the very first alternate day fasting studies, which was labeled as an intermittent fasting study, was in 2002. It was with overweight individuals that had asthma. And so some of the first studies on fasting were actually not looking at fat loss. They were looking at, guess what? Autoimmune and immune-mediated inflammation. So one of the very first studies was an alternate day fasting study, and they found that there wasn't much weight loss, but there was a dramatic reduction in markers of inflammation. So interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, a reduction in asthma and asthma-related symptoms. So, if you have autoimmunity and you're overweight, you might want to consider starting with time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting, 16-8, 18-6, or a feeding window that's compressed that accounts for your circadian clock system, and then graduate over time. Give yourself a few weeks. Give yourself 4 to 6 weeks with this protocol, and then you can move to something more advanced, or even what I like to call a metabolic Monday, which is you eat dinner normal on Sunday, don't eat it all Monday, you break your fast mid-morning on Tuesday. That's what I do every week. So now, weeks that I'm training super intense, or if I'm competing in, say, a powerlifting competition or a bike competition, I don't do that during the training part. But, if it's just an easy way to get a nice reset. So alternate day fasting is as it sounds, okay? You would eat on Monday, you would eat on Wednesday, you eat on Friday, Sunday, and then sort of change it up. So then it'd be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, the next week, and so on. So you eat one day, fast the next. Eat one day, fast the next. Now, some of the studies have normal eating on the weekends. So you might eat a normal meal, Friday, Saturday, Sunday normal, and then you fast again every other day that week. So that's what some of the studies show. Now, what a lot of practitioners have found to be helpful that I found in working with doctors over the years is the 5-2 diet, where people are fasting for 2 full days. You're just not eating anything 2 full days that are non-consecutive during the week. So the easiest way to do this would be, say you fast, so you don't eat on Tuesday, don't eat on Thursday. Or you do Monday, Wednesday, something like that, Monday, Friday. So this is the 5-2 diet. Now, a lot of people get great results doing this. So the Metabolic Monday is kind of like a 5-1 type diet, where you're just fasting 1 complete day a week. Now, on those other days that you're not fasting, you might want to consider time-restricted feeding. Now, here is why. So I'm going to flip this over, and what you see here on this bottom axis here is time. So you have 8 a.m., you have 12 p.m., you have 4 p.m., you have 8 p.m., and then what you have here is low and high. These are just arbitrary levels. Now, the hormone that is highlighted here in green is ghrelin. Ghrelin is involved in stimulating appetite. It makes you hungry. So what you see here, and this is why I like to consider sort of what is the natural physiology of the body trying to tell us, and then pairing that or overlaying that with the research that we have now about intermittent fasting and why I'm biased when it comes to time-restricted feeding is for this reason. So you have ghrelin peaks in a pulsatile style fashion. So you have high ghrelin in the morning, high ghrelin around noon, high ghrelin late afternoon. So you can, maybe if you don't want to worry about this AM peak and you just want to focus on ghrelin in the afternoon. But what we see here is digestive physiology sort of goes like this. Now, I'm broad brush stroking this, okay? So if we think about motility of the small bowel, the large bowel, the stomach, the pancreas, the gallbladder, it sort of follows this sort of curve, okay? Where it's not so high first thing in the morning. I mean, who's ever woken up and had an extra large pizza? Unless you did a lot of exercise the day before, most times you're not super hungry first thing in the morning, and you start to get more and more hungry, especially during the middle part of the day and the afternoon. So digestive enzymes. So if we think about hydrochloric acid release, HCl, we think about the small intestine, we think about the liver, all the different enzymes and everything like that are fairly active during the sun part of the day. Now, here's where we think about what's unique about leptin. Let me get a different pen here. So we're going to talk about leptin. Leptin, we've done many other videos on this. Leptin is not just a hormone involved in sort of energy homeostasis. It's an immune hormone as well. So leptin sort of functions sort of like this. So it kind of goes down. So it's going to be at its peak when you're sleeping so you don't wake up. Kind of goes low and it starts to go like this. So leptin, now think about this. This sort of makes sense. If it's at its lowest part around noon, it might be a little bit different for some people. Maybe it's 10 to 2, something like that. It's lowest during this part of the day. You have this ghrelin peak, sort of middle of the day. And then you have, from a circadian rhythm standpoint, you have all of your motility and gastrointestinal function and all of that. So what that says to me is really we should be having lunch, because everything is sort of primed. Low ghrelin is sort of this initial impetus to eat. So when we sort of ignore all this and then bookend our day, what a lot of people are doing is fasting all day and having this monster dinner. I would rather fast. I would rather have people, unless you're getting amazing results doing that, I would rather have people fast here, eat here, fast here. So they could do the bulk of their fasting in the evening and in the morning, and then they eat during the middle part of the day, because this is just the natural course of the circadian clock system. And then of course what we have sort of peaking here, again, this would be adiponectin starts to peak over here. So adiponectin is involved in making insulin sensitive and everything along those lines. Cortisol is going to be high here and start to decrease over there. And then we have melatonin is increasing over here. So what this says to me, if you bake in and look at all the different hormones, that the type of fast, and again, you might just want to take a screenshot of this so you can hold this thought, the type of fast that sort of makes the most sense if we consider that there's this thing called the circadian clock system is time-restricted feeding. So that was a long-winded way of sort of getting into it, but if you look here, this window is taking into consideration of feeding during the middle part of the day. Whereas if you just think of garden variety 16-8 or 18-6, that's not really sort of accounting for the middle part of the day, because your feeding window could be, so I know some clients who don't start eating till 6 or 7 and they eat till 11. Okay, so you might be doing 16 or 18 hours of fasting, but you're totally missing refueling your body when your body is primed to receive those nutrients. Again, I'm biased, okay, but that's why I'm a fan of time-restricted feeding for that reason. So, the point is, throughout this video, hopefully you just got sort of a primer to give you an idea. We're going to do many other episodes on this, and I'll share with you some clips and cuts from Jason Fung and Peter Attia and some of the other practitioners that we've talked to over the years, Ted Naiman and others, to help give you a primer on this. But there's a lot of research to support, and even when people just follow time-restricted feeding without cutting calories, they improve their health and they also improve their sleep. So that's the other thing to think about. So if you're bookending your day with a bunch of calories, eating in the 6 hours and then going to bed, that can augment or negatively impact your sleep, which is not good. So we want to focus sort of holistically, not just on the number of hours you're fasting in the day, but the time, because our bodies are, influenced by light and circadian rhythms and so forth, and we want to take that into consideration. So I would love to know what works for you, and if you found this video helpful, you can hit that like button. If you want to give Berberine a try, if you're new to Berberine, if you've heard about it, you can link below to some of the Berberines that I recommend and have personally vetted, because I know they really do work, and it can be a nice way to sort of kickstart your fast. I like to do this on my Metabolic Mondays. First thing in the morning, I'll take about 1,000 milligrams of Berberine. I don't do it all the time. You don't need to do it all the time. And I've really found that my ketones start to rise up, and I don't have that drive to eat. And I can just get a lot done on a Monday, which is fantastic. So I'll link to some of the research as well below. So friends, as always, I'm grateful that you tuned all the way in. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments about what you find to be helpful when it comes to intermittent fasting. All right, we'll catch you on a future video down the road. Bye now.